Good morning. This is Dan Woelfel and Mark Upkenorth from Wisconsin DNR. And we're out here this morning at Strawberry Creek, which is the area that the Wisconsin DNR captures Chinook salmon eggs for future planting in Lake Michigan. Mark is involved in the total process, and he's going to give us a little walkthrough of what's happening with the salmon today. Mark?
Good morning. You picked another nice day to come out here and visit us.
Definitely a gorgeous day, and I think the fish are enjoying their time here as well.
You bet. Yeah, welcome to Strawberry Creek again. This is our weir up at the headwaters of Strawberry Creek, almost the headwaters of Strawberry Creek, where we do our main collection of Chinook salmon for basically the whole state of Wisconsin.
How many Chinook salmon do you capture in these ponds during the breeding season?
Normally between 6,000 and 8,000 fish we'll harvest out of this pond. A couple of years ago we had over 11,000 fish.
Wow.
So,
and how's the trend this year?
So far it looks like we might set another record.
Oh goodness. Well, let's take a look at the ponds and maybe give us a little background on what's happening here.
Sure. These ponds were developed. We had our initial stocking of Chinook salmon for Lake Michigan out of Strawberry Creek in the 60s. So we regularly raise fish at our hatcheries, stock them in here for about a month to let them acclimate to the water, and then normally when they're 3 and 4 years old, ready to spawn, they'll come back to our facility right here.
So these fish that have traveled up here this morning or overnight, whatever, are actually being pushed down into a collection area by one of these fellows from the DNR that's with you?
Correct. There's a crowding screen that we go from one end to the other, or as many fish as we can handle, and crowd them up to here. You can see there's a basket. We'll collect the fish, maybe 20 to 30 fish at a time. They get raised up onto the working table here. We've got a dunk tank in the middle where we bubble water, CO2 into the water to actually take the oxygen away and calm them down, knock them out before they go to our spawning process.
Okay. So you have done this, how many times this year already have you been out here?
We're up to, this is probably our 7th time already.
Seventh time, and how many more times do you think you'll have to come back?
It depends a lot on the weather and the rainfall, and we'll probably go another 2 weeks at least, maybe 3 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then will have all the fish pretty much been spawned out at that time, or will there still
Correct.
be some left in the canal?
There might be a few, but by that time usually the water levels are down, so we can shut off our pump that we supplement the water supply from the ship canal, and they won't be able to come up Strawberry Creek anymore.
Okay, well, let's take a walk up here and take a look at the process if you don't mind. So here we're bringing a load of fish that have been captured out of the crowding area, right?
Yep, and then they're going into our dunk tank again with CO2 being bubbled into it. They'll be in there for a couple of 3 minutes.
And that just calms them down much like CO2 would, or carbon monoxide kind of, right?
Right.
Okay.
Then what they'll do is just make sure before they go to the spawning process, just make sure that they're all calm and everything else so we can handle them a lot better when we do our weighing, measuring, sexing and everything else, and then go to our processing table for their hatchery.
So how do these guys get this lucky opportunity to work in this particular position? Looks like it could be a little bit messy.
It's a little bit messy, but with the weather like this and being outdoors, I think they all enjoy it.
Oh, they do. All right. Well, let's take a walk over where the fellows taking a look at each individual fish. All right. And this station down here.
Right now we have a data collector inside, and Paul does the weighing, measuring. He'll actually sex them, look for clips. As in that fish right there, it's got an adipose fit missing, so it means it's got a micro tag in its head that we'll extract later down the way here.
Which will actually tell you all the information about when and where it was planted.
Correct. When it was planted, where it was planted, how old it is.
And what do you think was about the largest salmon that you've seen through here so far?
Right now we've seen some that are 22, 25 pounds. Historically, we've seen some over 30 pounds.
Well, I remember reading in one of the information sheets, they said the largest salmon in Lake Michigan was caught off Sturgeon Bay was 44 pounds.
Correct.
That would have been something that 2 guys needed to handle.
Right.
So.
And you handle that many fish during the day here, it wears on a guy.
Yeah, I could imagine. All right, so over here they're being then
weighed, measured, sexed, put onto the sorting table, so they go to our hatchery system where they'll actually extract the eggs and then spawn or mix the milk with the eggs and then take them right back to our hatchery for rearing.
Okay, Mark, these people that are here, they're from the various fish hatcheries in the state, as well as employees from the DNR here in Sturgeon Bay?
Sturgeon Bay, Kewaunee, Green Bay, they're all state employees except for the people that are taking eggs for other than the hatchery process.
Okay,
Yeah, they're from Wild Rose. again, Kiwani and Green Bay and Sturgeon Bay.
So what's happening here is the eggs that the fish hatcheries cannot use, those fish are then being sold to a commercial
Bait dealer.
bait dealer who then makes them into bait for future fishermen. Okay,
Correct.
great. So what we see here is one of the DNR employees identifying the sex of each fish and weighing it.
Correct.
And looking for that missing fin and the wire information, right? So to the left here, this large gray container is filled with fish that are going where?
Those are going to a rendering plant, or they make actual liquid fish fertilizer in Algoma.
Oh, okay. And the fish in the white container just to our left here?
All those fish are for human consumption that are under 32 inches. We've had them tested for PCBs and everything else, so they will be going to Paul's Pantry in Green Bay.
Oh, that's great. So the fish really don't get wasted at
No,
all.
that's
It's
right.
always somebody is using that resource up. Well, that's
Right.
good.
Years ago,
Okay.
we did all these fish went to the landfill at about $35 to $40 a ton just to landfill them, and they were wasted, really.
Oh, wow. Now, over here we see I guess I'll call it a butcher saw, for lack of a better word.
Yep.
And what's happening is, as they identify a fish with a missing fin and a wire in it, they put that red tag on the fish, right?
Correct. So we can trace that all the way through the whole process again.
And rather than save the whole fish, what you're doing is just cutting off that portion of the head that retains the wire.
Correct. And I'll show you a little micro tag after a while. It's pretty fine, but they will be extracted then again during the winter months.
Okay. And is that micro tag?
It's like barcoded.
It is. Okay. So that's how you're able to determine what information is in there.
Yes.
All right, we talked about these little wire tags that are inserted into the Chinook's head so that they can determine the information about where they were planted and when. And as you can see right now, they're actually cutting the head off where they've identified a fish with the wire tag inside of its head. So over the winter months, that wire tag will be removed from the fish. What I'd like to show you is the actual size of that wire tag. Being a fisherman myself, I never thought that they were this small. But I find out that the tags are so small they have to be read with a microscope. And I don't know if our photographer can get this, but that little piece of metal, basically the size of a sliver in your fingers, is what is injected into the fingerling's head. And then they find that in the head of the fish, read the information, and helps them understand where the fish were planted in the lake and when. So it's extremely small. It isn't an eighth of an inch long. Now, across from us, there are two people working with white buckets over there. These are the fellows that are actually stripping the eggs from the salmon.
Correct.
That are usable for the fish hatcheries.
For the fish hatcheries, for our
Okay.
replenishment.
All right.
And you can see there's a hose. He's injecting oxygen into that female. That way, the process, he can make the eggs come out rather than cutting it open or squeezing them and doing less damage to the eggs. What he'll do after he gets the eggs out, he'll take a look at it, look at the fluid, look at the quality of the eggs, see if there's any moon eyes or white spots in them. Then he'll actually cut the fish open and take a look at the kidney to see if there's any film or anything else or any other clinical designs of disease in that fish. If he finds any of those, eggs will go to Atlas Bait.
Okay, let's walk around over there where they're stripping the eggs out and take a look at that process. Okay, we're over here now at the fish egg collection station, I guess, right, Mark?
Correct.
And maybe take us through this as this fellow from the DNR is doing his thing.
They will put a needle in that's injecting oxygen into the fish, which will force the eggs out, doing a lot less damage to them. We'll drain the ovarian fluid. All the buckets have screens in the bottom. But then he'll look at the quality of the eggs. He'll cut the fish open and look at internal parts of especially the kidney, see if it's got any film over it or anything else. If he thinks that fish is no good or the eggs are no good, they'll go to the bait company.
Okay, great. All right, so this is all female eggs, and this position over here does the milking of the males.
He does the milk, right?
Okay, and he's doing the same basic process. He's injecting air into that.
No, he's actually just squeezing the milk out into little containers, and then we'll look for if there's a bad fish or something. If there's too much fluid in the milk, we'll discard that too. But
okay, so he's not going to contaminate the whole bucket. He's only going to take a small. I got you. That's great. Wow, they really flow out of there.
oh yeah,
Okay. Now, where's the actual mixing occurring?
the mixing goes on right behind us here.
All right, let's. This is the mixologist over here?
No, there's the mixologist.
Ah.
That's the rinsologist.
Mixologist, like a bartender for fish.
I guess.
Okay, great. And where is that?
Yeah, you'll have to wait till a couple eggs.
All right.
And there's the chief
I'm
the
chief
cook and bottle washer.
Oh, goodness. Mark, how long does this process typically, when does it start and when will it end typically?
Normally the end of October we'll start seeing fish come up here, either 15th or the following week after the 15th of September. But the fish again actually won't be ripe till sometime right now in early October.
And then you'll go for what, a couple more weeks?
A couple more weeks until we get our hatchery eggs filled. We're looking for probably 2.5 to 3.5 million eggs to fill all the hatcheries from Bayfield to Westfield to Wild Rose.
Now, when you're done here and you turn off these pumps, then the fish are unable to come up here, so whatever happens to them naturally,
Correct.
whatever happens, they get caught, they pass on,
Pass
whatever.
on.
Okay.
Yep, the younger fish, again, the 2 and 3 year olds will go back on the lake and then we'll be back here next year.
Now, I noticed that the younger fish were dark. Now, they're immature. When they go back out in the lake, will they turn silver again then? Over?
Yes. Yep.
Wow, I did not realize that that happened. That's really interesting.
Well, and it depends on their diets and everything else.
Their diets, it's got to be pretty limited from what I've seen out there. A bunch of steel baits.
Yep.
Yeah, occasional plastic fly, and then every now and then, maybe if they're lucky, an alewife.
Maybe
Yeah,
an
well, that's good that they get some natural food. All right, what's happening over here?
Dave has given them select eggs that he thinks are good for the hatchery to go into. They've been fertilized right now.
Oh, so
And
he's already done the mixing.
Yeah, he's dumped the milk in there. We'll mix them by hand. And within seconds, those eggs will be fertilized.
Now, what happens from here with all these eggs? Obviously, they got to go to a hatchery, but I mean, how long do you have before they have to get someplace? They have to be
We
kept?
probably have about 7 hours to get them back into the hatchery on jars and bubbling again. The shorter time, probably the better, but Wild Rose is probably an hour and a half from Green Bay, so we're 45 minutes to an hour from Green Bay.
So they're put in big tanks?
Yes, we've got some blue coolers over there where we put enough eggs in there because the eggs will swell once they get fertilized and put in water. We're treating them with thiamine, which helps them prevent bacterial kidney disease. And then they'll be kind of water hardened. We've got water in the truck, well water.
Let's take a look at that once, see what's...
You can look at the jugs if you want. There's some eggs in that one right there.
In which one?
In the one with the 2 on there.
Okay. Oh, wow. I don't know if you can see this or not. Let me tip it over a little bit. Those are all fertilized eggs, right?
Correct.
Now you'll fill that pretty much to the top with eggs?
Yes, about 3/4 full. And then just make sure the water temperatures stay the way they currently are right now. We'll add ice if we have to. And
Oh, really? Okay. So then when you get to the fish hatchery, how long before they're fry? I guess that would be the proper word. How long before they're swimming?
It depends on water temperatures and how long we've got them, but it could 14 days to 22 days.
Okay, so
It'll
very
depend.
reasonable, short period of time, and how long does it take them to grow from fry state to the time that you plant them again back here and
They'll be back here in June.
They'll be back here in June.
May and June.
And how big will they be at that time, Mark?
Very small, probably 2.5, 3 inches.
And for the
And then they'll stay again in the pond here for maybe a month.
okay.
And then they'll start smolting, and then we'll just release them on a current rainfall event or something like that.
Okay, so they're 2-3 inches long in June or whatever time frame you release them back down the creek. And how much will they grow in the first year? What would they typically grow?
Probably up to 15 to 16 inches.
Wow. So what we'd call a shaker if you're a fisherman is
Correct.
going to be really a first year planted fish.
Correct. Yep.
Wow, that's
Year and a half old, maybe.
that's great information. Well, Mark, it's been great. I appreciate your taking the time here. This is going to go on our cable access channels, so the people of Sturgeon Bay and the surrounding communities are getting a chance to see how this process works.
And there's a lot of people that don't even know it's here or existing.
I've been here a number of years. It's the first time I physically have been out here to watch this process, and so I think this is great. And anyone is welcome to come when this is happening to view what's going on.
Correct, right.
Great. Well,
And normally we'll go 2 or 3 times a week till again late October.
and they could call the local DNR office
Correct,
to find
in
out when you're
Sturgeon Bay
coming out?
here, yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed this. And you'll see it on your cable access channels, and maybe we'll be back for a rerun next year.
Well, I hope so. You're
Thank
welcome
you
back
much.
anytime.
All right. Bye-bye.